Good morning, Common Sensors. Paul Cox here, hosting the Littlewood and Cox solo, as I have been all week. We've got an update from Mark Littlewood very shortly, but let me tell you about what's coming up on the show today. Please do stay tuned. Thank you very much for everybody coming from Mike Graham, and thanks everybody from UK Live Online. Stay where you are. I promise you we have a jam-packed show. Coming up in the show today, we have Jess Parkin, who is the Reform Councillor for Birmingham. I'm going to talk to him about that. That is a very interesting council to try and lead. We've got AY Audits, which many of you might know. This is a guy who goes around the asylum sneaker hotels asking questions of security, asking questions of the asylum sneakers themselves. He'll be in the studio with me. That's going to be a fascinating interview. Mark Littlewood will be here talking about Danny Kruger. Then Bruce Unfiltered, Bruce Hamill from 11 o'clock will be my presenter buddy. Plenty to talk to Bruce about. And during that hour, we will have June Slater. June Slater for slating it. Look, what's not to love about all of that? Thank you very much for joining me. The Chike's back in the comments. Morning, all morning, the Chike. How you doing? But none of this could happen without, of course, Charlotte, Pooch, and my team sat in the room with me. We have got Luke the Duke and Princess Scarlett. Luke the Duke has been up all night drinking. All night. Relentless. It's been ridiculous. The bins in our area are empty and there are cans everywhere, but he's working hard over there. He's pressing buttons, God bless him, and Princess Scarlett is keeping him in order. Morning, team.
Good morning.
There they are. I'm not making them up. I'm not mentally ill, despite what you might believe. Look, first of all, let's just discuss some of the breaking news, shall we? I know it's been covered a lot on Mike's show and covered a lot elsewhere, but the dearly departed Dolly Parton left us yesterday at 80 years old. And it's weird, isn't it? Thank you very much. The Duke stumbled in over there, tripped over his special brew to give me the papers. And of course, at 80, it's a great innings, but many of us thought she'd go on forever because she looked so magnificent. Never had any work done, of course. God bless her. But we've got on the front of the Daily Mail, Burnham warned of impending Russia attack. Of course he has to, doesn't he? Love Bruce there in the comments. Boycott fears over Burnham's Israel plan. Imagine this, right? Just for a moment, because we keep being told that World War III is just around the corner. Do you know what's worse than World War III? Having Andy Burnham as your Prime Minister for World War III. Absolutely ridiculous. Jenny Parker there saying Bruce Almighty. Bruce will be with us later on at 11, of course. And the Sun. We will always love you, Dolly. Please feel free to continue your Dolly comments in the comments. I'm not going to go on about it too much today. We know the news and we know it's very sad, but it's a celebration. When someone lives 80 years, I always think it's a celebration. Talking of celebrations, of course, this is the Littlewood and Cox show. We've been celebrating now for a couple of weeks. And you may have noticed that Littlewood isn't here. He, of course, if you're unaware, has travelled to countries far away to have some surgery to deal with a rather delicate situation, but he has left us a video update. Let's play that now, shall we?
Well, hello Coxie, hello Common Sensors. Mark Littlewood checking in from beautiful, beautiful Calidore. Everything's going well here. I have to say, I love Spanish doctors. I asked what should I do to, for a bit of rehab, a bit of rehabilitation after my kind of accident and injury, and they couldn't have been clearer. They just said, Mark, do whatever you usually do to relax. Well, one thing I usually do to relax is to consume vast amounts of nicotine. This is the tobacco here in Calidore. Cigarettes, €7 a pack. €7 a pack. What's that, about £6? Less than half the price that they are in London. Absolutely fantastic. So plenty of nicotine will be consumed. And then I thought, well, what else do I do to relax? Well, as you know, I treat, beer as my principal anaesthetic. So found a good restaurant here. This is the Indian Fusion restaurant here in Calidore. Calidore's greatest Indian restaurant, absolutely fantastic. And beer here is, guess what? Have a guess. Even better value than the cigarettes. Beer here is, for a pint, For a pint, I kid you not, €4.50. Get a bit of that, common senses, €4.50. So the rehab is going pretty well, and I'm now just going to sit down and enjoy a delicious curry here at Indian Fusion. And you know what, common senses? I reckon I'll be fighting fit by middle of next week. So Coxie, keep the revolution televised. I'll see you soon once my nicotine, beer, curry rehabilitation has finally concluded. Take care, friends. See you soon.
Well, I still think I've got the best end of the deal. Mark does get to travel the world, having surgery for hurting himself during special alone times. But I get to sit here and talk to you guys. And what greater pleasure is that? And every day this week, I've been asking a question. I've put it on my X account, at Paul Cox Comedy. Do come and follow me there. Also, I've been asking it here. And my question of the day is, what does Britain spend taxpayers' money on that you would stop tomorrow? Or now. Do it now if you want. We don't have to do it tomorrow. Immediately is the answer. And Nanny Lulu is straight in the comments. Good morning, Nanny Lulu. How about translating every leaflet into 40 languages nobody asked for? Great point, Nanny Lulu. Thank you very much for getting involved. The Hayoka said, Britain doesn't spend taxpayers' money. It spends money created by the Bank of England. Tax money is destroyed to take money out of the system to control inflation. There is also no such thing as government debt. Well, thank you very much, Hayoka. I hope you're well this morning and you managed to get the right level of sertraline. Thank you, mate. Mary F, just about everything at present. We can afford nothing. That's a good point, Mary. We can afford very little, which is why I asked the question, actually. FTT Ukraine, MP's second home, fuel bills, migrant hotels, and free NHS for migrants. The royal family, Westminster state visits. Well, do you know what? I am a royalist. I'm a monarchist. I love the royal family. I love what they do for the country. We've got to stick by them, haven't we? Through good and through bad. And I'm not sure we're in good anymore. Obviously, the late Queen Elizabeth II was absolutely fantastic. Not too sure about this latest king. Hello, Paul. You're a wonderful presenter. Thank you very much, Cindy. I needed that this morning because I don't get any feedback from the production staff, mainly because Scarlett has to look after the Duke while he's throwing up. Johnny Stella said, morning, Coxie. No need for Putin to attack the UK. You can just sit back and watch us doing it from within. Johnny, very true. Dark humour there, but very, very true indeed. Do let me know in the comments what you think of the current state of affairs in the UK. It's absolutely depressing. But back to the big question, what does Britain spend taxpayers' money on that you would stop tomorrow? In the comments, we have got net zero. Net zero. Who wouldn't stop that? I definitely would. TikTok videos for MP, says Justy. And Cuthbert Calculus says overseas aid. I think that's a really good point, actually. I've always wanted, you know, if you had no money, just imagine that. Could you imagine such a thing? If you had no money, you could barely afford to pay your lecky bills, you could barely afford to pay for anything. And then you just started giving it away anyway. For, you know, transgender studies in Mumbai. I mean, why? Look, I understand that foreign aid has its benefits. It gives you leverage in some negotiations. You know, it's helpful to some other countries. But we're a developing country now. We pretend to be a first world country, but there's nothing first world about Great Britain. I would say across Europe, Great Britain is definitely one of the developing countries. And I don't mean that tongue in cheek or in any humour. You travel across all of the major European countries like Germany and France and Spain and the UK, we are developing. We are regressing, if anything. Go to Lithuania. Now that's a first world country. People travel from the UK to Lithuania now to have medical care because their medical care is well beyond anything we have ever had in this country. Sharon Lewis said the list is just endless, the things that we would stop. But please do keep putting your comments in there. I will read them all out. We don't want this all to be doom and gloom. Please come up with anything you believe is humorous. We're going to our first guest shortly. It's Jex Parkin. Jex, are you there?
Morning, Paul. How are you? I didn't hear that question. Sorry, can you just repeat that? I think my signal.
No, all I asked, Jex, was how are you? That was it. That's all I've done so far, my good friend. And how are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. Do forgive me, the Wi-Fi in the council house isn't particularly great, as you might imagine. We've got enough
Of
problems to
course.
deal with, and now the internet's cutting out, so sorry I didn't
Brilliant.
hear you.
Yeah. Wonder what that's going on. Look, Jex, you're the leader of the majority party in Birmingham Council. You do look like the whitest person I've seen on the Birmingham Council for some time. How are you finding it? Because you're not actually able to lead, are you? They never managed to agree on the situation in Birmingham. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, sure. So we are the largest party. We're not quite the majority party. So to achieve a majority in Birmingham, you need 51 seats, and that would be the majority out of 101. We achieved 23 seats just after the elections and became the largest party, which for reform we thought was quite remarkable. We're really proud of how we tackled those May elections. In a city like Birmingham, still become the largest party as reform was something that nobody anticipated us being able to do. But of course, it still left us well away off achieving a majority. So we proposed ourselves to lead the council, of course, as the largest group. We felt that was our duty. The Conservative group, who many voters would put their faith in as a right-wing party, didn't back us, and they instead voted alongside the Lib Dems, alongside the Greens, even the guys who are independents, in a different pre-arranged deal, which resulted in the Liberal Democrat leading the council alongside the Greens and independents, which we thought wasn't right to the people that voted for them.
Well, that's a really good point, Jack. So that doesn't feel like democracy to me. That feels like a cabal within the Birmingham Council doing their own thing, irrespective of what the voters actually wanted in Birmingham. Obviously, a lot of people voted for you. How do you think this has left the voters and the people of Birmingham feeling?
Well, I think people see what reality is, don't they? And the problem with some of the mainstream parties, you think about the Tories, think about Labour, even the Lib Dems, is they treat the general public like mugs. And I'm sorry to use that kind of term, but frankly, I feel like it's something which we've all seen over the course of our lifetime. And the problem is, if you're a mainstream party and you try and keep fooling the general public, eventually you're going to run out of steam and you're going to run out of time, and people are going to run out of patience. And that's part of the reason why Reform has seen such a surge in the polls over the last 18 months, becoming the largest party in Britain.
Yeah, surely it's just going to embolden Reform voters and maybe others. I mean, I joked at the top, but Birmingham is very much a divided city in terms of culture and its political leadership. You know, anecdotally and on the internet, I hear lots of things and I see videos, you know, of people speaking in languages that I don't understand, but the majority of people in Birmingham, I'm sure, must understand. What does that tell us? What does that mean for our politics? How do we move on? And particularly from a reform perspective, to try and make Britain, to try and consolidate Britain around British culture, what does that do? Because how do you sort of, in your position, manage what feels like managing in a foreign country?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the challenges that we've seen in Birmingham. People talk about Birmingham City Council as being a really fragmented council, and it is. We're the largest party. We got elected with 23 seats. The second largest party was the Greens at the time with 19 seats. And following that is a lot of parties, none of whom on particularly massive numbers of seats. And it's really spread. You know, there are something like 7 or 8 parties now on Birmingham City Council. There's several independent groups which rotate and move around. And it's a fragmented council. But what I say is similar to what you're suggesting there, Paul. It represents a fragmented society. And that's one of the challenges that we've now got, not just in Birmingham, but we're going to see this across the United Kingdom too. And as far as I'm concerned, we should all be uniting, yes, under the British flag, under British values and British principles. And that's how we bring people together. Because people call Reform a divisive party. But actually what we seek to do is to unite under one common purpose. And of course, that is the British flag.
Yes, quite. So there was a story in Birmingham just recently. Birmingham City Council had admitted staff witnessed attempts to breach the secret ballot at 50 polling stations in May's election. Now, this in May was something that was covered quite a lot. But it feels like they're admitting this actually happened now, and there were people within the council or people checking within the council that actually witnessed this. Is this true?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of the problem in that Reform, and certainly our leader Nigel Farage, have been pushing this issue for many, many years, not being taken seriously. We saw it in the Gorton and Denton by-election earlier this year. We told everybody this is what was happening and made it very clear that this was a challenge at the ballot box and something which people should be very, very concerned about. And we got laughed at by the mainstream media. Nobody took it seriously. And now here we are all these months later with evidence of this happening in the largest council in the country's elections back in May. And I think finally people are starting to see that actually perhaps reform are just ahead of the curve on this particular issue. So it's quite right. We saw suggestions in the media, alleging family voting and pressured and several other tactics which are quite unappetizing and not really suitable for a democratic nation like ours. And we decided to investigate. So as Reform UK, we submitted a Freedom of Information request following seeing those stories. And the response that we got back was quite alarming indeed. There are cases of people ripping up ballot papers and throwing it at polling station staff because they were getting told that they couldn't vote alongside their family, people telling their sons and daughters how to vote, trying to walk into the ballot box with them and trying to sign the papers with them and tick the correct box. It was absolutely disgraceful. And one of the things that we found from this research is that it's not just a problem which is happening now. This isn't the start of something. This isn't the genesis of family voting here in Birmingham or in the United Kingdom. Some of the language and behaviour from some residents and voters suggested this is something that they've been doing for quite some time. And actually, lots of people in Birmingham now clearly, as shown by this evidence, have gotten comfortable with the fact that they can vote with their family, for their wives, sons and children. And I think that's completely disgraceful. This is becoming, make no mistake, in some areas of Birmingham, the new norm when voting. And that's completely unacceptable in a democratic country.
And isn't that just testament to the fact that we are seeing such great cultural changes within the UK? And Birmingham is a test bed for this, isn't it? Because Birmingham and Bradford and Luton and cities like this have the greatest contingent of, Muslim communities or Asian communities that are used to this. This is their cultural way of life, which is great. And, everyone's entitled to their cultural way of life. However, this is the UK. This is not our culture. And we simply can't allow this to happen because it's just going to be an issue forever otherwise, isn't it? It's not compatible, is it?
Yeah, it's quite right. And to be clear, I'm not interested in somebody's ethnicity or religion. What I'm interested in, as I'm sure you are, is whether the person holding the ballot paper is the person deciding how that vote is cast. And we're really clear about this now. We want Birmingham City Council to publish the full post-election review, to publish clarity about the outcome of cases that have been passed to the police. Because don't forget, the West Midlands Police are now saying that they're reviewing some of the suggestions and, in fact, some of the documentation surrounding this. And we want to know what firm safeguards are going to be put in place before Birmingham next goes to the polls, because that's what's really important. You're quite right. This can't happen in our country.
And you saw this with your own eyes, did you, Jex?
I didn't see this with my own eyes, no, but this is why we submitted this Freedom of Information request, and there are clear reports. This is now substantiated. Been reports, concerns flagged by presiding officers, polling station staff, and it's clear as day now. This is a genuine problem, can't be ignored by the establishment any longer, and this has to be dealt with.
Do you think, just lastly on this point, do you think that even if it's proven this has happened, and a very good chance that it has, that anything will actually be done? Or do you think this is too sensitive a subject because it's too aligned with a culture that people are worried to question?
It's a fair challenge. I certainly hope something is done. I think one of the problems that we have with this government actually is that they aren't dealing with big macro issues like this that Reform Nigel Farage have been flagging for many, many years. But ultimately something has to be done. And of course, under a Reform government, this is something that would be dealt with promptly. And with a bit of luck, we'll see that in not too long at all.
Okay, the 20, I got to mention this. Birmingham City, on the front of, I think it's no, we haven't got it. It's on front of the Telegraph, which I don't have with me. On front of the Telegraph, Birmingham is to become the first 20-mile-an-hour city in the UK. Now, here in London, we've got 20-mile-an-hour roads all over the place. It's an absolute nightmare. And, of course, Wales is 20 miles an hour. Is the 20-mile-an-hour city something you support, Jex?
Well, I think you could probably guess the answer to that one, Paul. No, of course it isn't. From my perspective, it's absolutely remarkable because you look at what's happened on the roads here in Birmingham. First, they leave the highways to ruin with potholes blighting the streets, making it incredibly challenging to drive without causing damage to your cars. Then they introduce a clean air zone, charging some drivers to visit Birmingham city centre. And now they want to reduce every local road in Birmingham to just 20 miles per hour. So the question that I'm asking, and that residents will rightly be asking, is just how difficult does this council want to make it for residents to drive in Birmingham?
Well, this is it. And I can tell you from my own experience, because for 12 years I worked for Transport for London when I was at the beginning of my comedy career, and before I worked in broadcasting and media. And it was rolled out across many streets in London. Now, the argument often is it reduces KSIs, which are killed and seriously injured statistics. And to some degree it does. And there is statistics to show that it's reduced by 30% over about a 30-year period. But there are also a lot more cars on the road. It doesn't really remove pollution because there is lots of idling going on. It's really just anti-car. There's no two ways. I mean, I can tell you this from working within Transport for London. It was definitely anti-car. You know, I'm not speaking out of school here. They definitely didn't want cars in the city. They think that they can make that happen through making it very difficult to drive. But of course, our economy thrives on moving things around by motor vehicle. All freight, and so all goods are moved by motor vehicle in major cities like London and Birmingham. And it's going to actually have a knock-on effect on the economy and the growth of the economy in somewhere like Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be really clear, Reform stance is that we absolutely support these kind of safety measures on speed where it's deemed appropriate, where evidence genuinely suggests that there's a concern for safety and it's necessary, such as outside of schools. Of course, we don't challenge that. We absolutely back that. But everywhere else should remain at 30 miles an hour unless there's clear evidence to substantiate that should be changed. We're clear, 20 miles an hour shouldn't be a blanket rule. It shouldn't be the new default. It should be the exception and not the norm. And it's an interesting point that you pick up on around the KSIs, the serious incidents and collisions that, of course, are a serious concern on the roads that we don't want to see more of. But actually, Birmingham's done some monitoring on this. And Birmingham's own 3-year monitoring said that it could never be stated for certain if the reduction to 20 miles per hour was the main factor in areas that have already seen this reduction. And in one pilot area in that report, those type of collisions actually rose by 31%. So yes, absolutely, this isn't necessary. It's an overreaction. And quite frankly, it is a war on motorists. It is most certainly anti-car. And another point that I'd like to pick up on, if I may, is that if you make 20 miles per hour the new default across the city, because bear in mind, this is every single local road. Every road that isn't an A road in Birmingham under this plan would be reduced to 20 miles per hour. But if you do that, you undermine the respects for the areas that genuinely need it. Because outside schools, of course, you may well genuinely need it. In some other areas where there's a genuine safety concern, you may genuinely need that reduction. But if you implement the blanket rule, it just means people are going to ignore it there. And by extension of that, they're going to ignore it everywhere. And that's not what we want. We want safer roads, but done correctly.
Well, absolutely, Jex. It's been fascinating talking to you. Please do come back on. Tell people where they can find you online, how they can follow you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm at Jex Parkin on X. It's the best way to find me.
Jex, thanks so much for taking time out of what I'm sure is a very busy schedule for you. Good luck with everything you're doing in Birmingham. We really do appreciate it, my friend. We're going to go to the news now, and then we'll be back with AY Audits.
Hello, I'm Edward Hughes. The Knob of the North has just returned from his first foreign trip to Kiev. We are an English-speaking channel. It's Kiev, not Kyiv. He handed Ukraine the blueprints to build its own long-range missiles and pledged to push US President Trump for Patriot air defense systems. At home, 5 more people have been arrested over the deadly A-66 crash near Middlesbrough that killed 7, including 2 police officers, bringing the total to 17. The government is preparing to tell people to stock up on food and essentials amid climate and security threats, while energy bills are set to hit a 3-year high this winter. Housing plans for tens of thousands of new affordable homes have been outlined, though Burnham has softened some earlier pledges. Yellow weather warnings are also in force for heavy rain and thunderstorms across parts of England and Wales. Laters, tigers.
Welcome back and cheers for the news there, Edward Hughes. I am joined with somebody who's very well known, particularly on YouTube, as someone who has gone around and very much highlighted the problems we've got with the illegal immigration hotels in this country. I'm with AY Audits. Morning, mate. How you doing?
How you doing? You all right, buddy?
Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah, good
Do
to see
I
you.
call you AY? Do I call you?
Yeah, it's all right, mate. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
No. So, look, for those who don't know, tell us what auditing is. Tell us how you got into it.
Well, it's been well documented. I've done a couple of podcasts on it already, but basically I couldn't believe it was happening, to be honest with you. I was looking at some stuff on social media, totally, even now I might have an iPhone, Google Maps and make a telephone call. That's what I know how to do with a phone. I've learnt a little bit more since then, obviously, but wasn't really into social media and seeing all this stuff, and I just wanted to see it for myself. So I thought, right, you know what, I'm just going to go and visit some of these places, and
then you
ended
did.
up
So
some
you picked up your own phone, and you went down to, I guess, was it a local hotel?
Yeah, so like local-ish. I actually bought like a GoPro, like proper thing and stuff. And so yeah, I just wanted to see, like, I wanted to see if it was, because you would hear like a lot of stuff. Like at one stage, they were saying, I don't know, there was 90% of these were women and children that was coming over on these boats. Then it went down to 40%, and then when you actually look and you're like, well, actually,
Well, that's really interesting, because that kind of leads me on to my next question. What have you seen that's just not being reported by mainstream media?
you see everything. Yeah, like you go to these hotels, I've seen. First of all, you're seeing like people working illegally. You're capturing that on camera.
Yeah.
And then
So people who are staying in the hotels, going out and working illegally, what's that, Deliveroo? Or?
yeah, Deliveroo, and then you seem to find that like the mainstream sees something that becomes like hot on social media, and they think, oh, that's actually correct. Then they go and blow it up. But that's fine. That's what you want to happen, isn't it? Like if you've got illegal men, they're waiting for their asylum and they're working illegally, living rent free, getting 4 meals a day, getting driving licenses, getting karate lessons, getting self-defense lessons, getting yoga lessons.
So you could get a driving licence as an illegal migrant staying in a
So I've
migrant
seen,
hotel?
like in these hotels and stuff, you see it quite clear as day, all from the signs on the walls. I know someone else that actually got footage of them inside like a theory test place where they was getting them through their theory tests.
So we're teaching them to drive. You said we're teaching them, did you say karate?
Karate's like self-defense lessons.
Brilliant, that's what we need, isn't it?
Well, I said at the time, like I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, look at this sign, and because you see like a lot of signs in there about, this is far right, this is that, this is this. So they look at us white people as being far right, racist, and then you go and teach them how to karate lessons and self-defense lessons.
Wow.
So you're thinking to yourself,
I mean, you are what I would call a unit. You're a big guy, mate. So, and this is a dangerous job you're doing. Have you seen anything that's really shocked you? Because you are putting yourself in a situation, and many people will be very grateful that you are, because without you doing what you would do, and I'm sure the police aren't happy with it, but without you doing what you were doing, people like us and our audience would never have seen most of the things. Have you seen anything that's really shocked you?
I think like it's the disdain that these people actually have for us.
Really?
Yeah. And I think I've just been fortunate that a few times it's actually managed to come across on camera. So the audience have actually seen it and actually felt it as well. So I just think I've been fortunate in that situation where it's actually because you can imagine on camera sometimes.
I can imagine, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it gets a bit tasty. So there's lots of security at the hotels, I imagine.
Yeah.
Are they stopping anyone getting out, or do they check anyone when they come back in to make sure that they've not got weapons or they've done anything on their travels?
These security are not there to keep them in. They're there to keep us out.
Right.
Yeah, they're not there to keep them in, or they've got no control over them. You're talking like you've got 4 or 5 security. Some of them have got 2 or 3 security in them. They're not controlling these people. I'm sorry, they're not.
So what would you say to critics that say, like, you shouldn't be doing this? The authorities are trained. They know the right things to do. We don't need people like AY audits getting in the way. What would you say to someone who would say something like that?
I would tell them, look, if you want to go and watch mainstream media and sit there and watch BBC One and BBC whatever, yeah, it's up to you. If you want to get the real truth, you come to social media. And we've proven it time and time and time again, because we've live streamed stuff. And then we've watched the BBC do voiceovers of the same clips and make out you're saying something completely different, which wasn't true. And if it wasn't for the fact that we actually had it on live stream, then maybe that people might have believed what the BBC was saying. But because we was there, they can't argue with it. And then you look at that and you think, you know what? You just talk. They just talk. They want to spin their own narrative. And
So, what is it that you want from this? What do you want to tell your? What is it you really want to get across? Is there a mission here? Do you have a goal? What is it you really want to achieve as part of doing this?
do you know, look, people need to wake up, to exactly what's going on, and waking as many people up, getting as many people as we can to be able to get into them voting offices. Some people never voted in their lives.
No.
Don't even and that's where you need to hit, because the only way realistically is if we go to vote. You're not going to change anything in any other way, unless you actually unless you vote your way out of it. Let's be realistic. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult to change hearts and minds with any other way. Look, talking of which way you would vote, I'm sure, much like me, you get labelled as far right.
Yeah.
Are you?
No, very far from it. But these labels, they chuck them around so willy-nilly now that they've just been diluted.
Yeah.
So what does it actually mean now? What? Because I don't want illegal men coming into our country illegally on, not even small boats no more. They're like mega boats. Does that make you far right for not wanting these people to come into your country illegally? And
well, it's a way of controlling the narrative, isn't it? If you label someone as far right, if you just went back as far as 5-10 years ago and you called someone racist or far right or bigoted in some way, immediately that would shut the debate down. You'd just be seen as bad, right? Bad. End of chat. Not going to talk to AY audits anymore. Bad. Whereas now, largely thanks to some of the work that people like you have done, where you're going, well, hang on a minute, okay, you think I'm far right, so you think this is all about the skin colour of the person. I've never heard you mention the skin colour of the people, but it's not about that. It's about the way they're behaving. It's the way our authorities aren't looking after us. And I think a lot of men in your position are saying, look, there are women and girls in this community that are vulnerable because these men are free to come and go. And therefore, if we don't do anything about it, no one's going to do anything to protect us. What are you seeing from the authorities, the police? We've already talked about the security, local authorities, councillors. What are you seeing that, has anything that you've seen made you reassured that we are going to be protected from these people?
no, not for the police, no. I've had instances where I've been assaulted.
Right.
Police have come, not done nothing. Just left it to be brushed under the carpet, so to speak, or make it so difficult. But when you look at Crowborough, must have heard of Crowborough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you had a illegal migrant come from Germany. He was in that camp for 12 days, and they found out he was wanted for alleged serious sexual offences.
Right.
Yeah?
In Germany?
In Germany.
Right.
He was walking around here for 12 days, or walking around Crowborough for 12 days,
Yeah.
unnoticed. And so if you think they're going to protect you, then think again, because they're letting these people, they're telling us not to go to these countries. They say to us, don't go to Sudan, don't go to Eritrea. It's not safe for you to go. It's okay, we'll bring them all to you, and keep your fingers crossed.
Are you aware of Christian Brogan and the Watchman, and the fact that Isabella Oakeshott managed to get this guy, Christian,
On a dinghy
and get across, and he saw everything with his own eyes? Do you think because of that and because of journalism like that, people are now going to start to think, hang on a minute, this isn't right? Because what Christian is saying he saw is that he saw the smugglers themselves, the ringleaders themselves coming across on the boat, but not just coming across on the boat and going back. Some are staying. The guy that led his escape and invasion is now claiming asylum in the UK. So they're already committing a crime by breaking into the country.
Yeah.
Those guys are committing a crime by being the smugglers themselves. And as you say, within that boat are being harboured people who have got rape convictions or wanted for rape in other European countries. Surely now people are going to start to open their eyes, aren't they?
Mate, you'd like to think so, because last year we had one that was wanted for murder in Egypt, and he ended up on Brighton Beach with a couple of his mates, committing, and he's been convicted of a serious sexual crime. Yeah, like, and you think to yourself, like, when is it going to end? And the government know about it, otherwise they wouldn't be giving out these leaflets. They're giving leaflets out to them, and like, so they obviously know that they've got a problem with it. So,
do you see that there is a differentiation though? Do you see that within those people invading the country, there are people that genuinely are seeking asylum and they're making their way into these hotels and they should be here? Or do you see everybody as just people that are criminals that are breaking into the country?
to be honest with you, I see them all as criminals breaking into the country. Yeah, I think anybody, like, you can't, like, I'm sorry, but you can't distinguish against, just because, I don't know, there might be a homeless guy outside, yeah, and he might be shoplifting from Tesco's, or I might be shoplifting from Tesco's, just because I can afford a £2 sandwich and he's still shoplifting. Yeah, you're still breaking into the country. It's illegal. So.
Are you at all worried that videos like yours and journalism like yours may encourage people to take it into their own hands and perhaps get involved in, attacking these migrants? What would you make of someone that would say, look, AY Audits all he's doing is stirring up hate, and he's encouraging other people to do the same?
So what I'd say, watch my videos. Yeah. And if you could actually find anything in my videos, any of my live streams, where I've attempted to do anything like that, then I'd have a problem, because the police would be on my doorstep for a start. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And so no, I don't do that at all. Got no intention of doing that. All I do is just go around, I show the truth, the whole truth, live stream it, and that's it.
So Christian Brogan, the Watchman, he said that he doesn't believe the previous government, and especially this government, are actually serious about stopping the boats. He believes what they're serious about is helping people not notice. So it's not about stopping the boats. It's not about doing the right thing for the country. It's about not doing anything about it, but changing the perspective that this is a problem. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because they want to control the narrative, don't they? That's why they want to try to push citizen journalism out, so to speak, so they can then try and control the narrative. You had it not too long ago where they were showing them slicing a boat in the water. Yeah. So hold on a minute. So you can do that. Yeah. Either you can or you can't.
It gave the impression that the French police were doing lots about it. And one of the things that Christian's documentary shows is that the French aren't doing a great deal, and they really don't want civilian or independent journalism on the beaches because it exposes them for doing a bad job. One thing I did hear as part of that documentary is that it seemed like UK Border Force were quite strong when they came across, and they're not sending them back, but they dealt with them very professionally. They weren't exactly welcoming. Do you think the UK Border Force are doing a good job?
Look, it's a tricky one, yeah. I've spoken to UK Border Force, like when I've been down at Ramsgate, etc., so I've spoken to them. It's a tricky one, yeah. Are they doing a good job? No, clearly not, because if anything can get through this border is it's a joke, really, like when you think about it. Yeah, like, should the Navy be out there and pushing them back, etc.? Probably. Would you, if anybody was in danger in the middle of the sea, would you pick them up? Probably. You know, like they've.
What do you think the solution is? How do you see this panning out? Let's just say we don't get a change of government. The right can't unite, the right of politics that is, and we're unable to get a reform government or a reform restore conservative coalition of some kind, and we get this crazy, dangerous coalition on the left between the Lib Dems, Labour and the Greens. How far do you see this problem going?
Do you know what? Like, it's scary to think about, yeah? If the right side don't buck up their ideas, because that's what they're going to have, and you're going to get a constant influx of these. And now they're going to, well, we've seen it, they're putting these unidentified people that nobody knows about into our communities. They're putting them into HMOs, into groups of 4s or 6s, and they're going into communities, and this is just going to keep on going. It's going to be a conveyor belt of people. And you just go back to that document that the UN produced, 2001. And it's about, and they go all through this, immigration, and how they're going to do it. And it tells you exactly how they're going to do it, and that's exactly what they're doing. And you wait until all the numbers all add up, you have a look at it, and it's there in black and white.
So is this what you see you doing for the foreseeable future? Have you any plans to stop doing this, or are you just going to carry on?
To be honest with you, like, I think we have to carry on. You have to keep on showing people exactly what's going on. You got to try and report the truth. There's no point, you can't rely on these BBCs. We've shown this ourselves. When they lied, they made a video actually about me.
Right.
And they put it on BBC One, tried to make out I was saying one thing, but luckily enough, I had the live stream.
Right.
So when you could actually replay it, you look at it, you're like, well, he actually didn't say that. You actually took something from a different conversation from a live stream 2-3 months ago. Wow. You know, but look, you have to keep going as hard as it gets, and as tough as it gets, and I get a lot of aggravation. I get demonetized from YouTube and all this sort of stuff.
I bet.
Like constantly, so.
Well, AY Audits, thank you so much for coming in. There's so much more I could talk to you about. I could talk to you all day about this. Absolutely fascinating. The only thing I want to say to you is keep safe, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not going to be, it's not a safe job what you've decided to do. So please do keep safe when you're out there. Tell everybody in our audience where they can find you.
AY Audits.
AY Audits.
Yeah, and that's what it is across all my socials, Facebooks, Instagram, all just AY Audits.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers. Thank you. Let's go to the news.
Hello, I'm Edward Hughes. The Knob of the North has just returned from his first foreign trip to Kiev. We are an English-speaking channel. It's Kiev, not Kyiv. He handed Ukraine the blueprints to build its own long-range missiles and pledged to push US President Trump for Patriot air defense systems. At home, 5 more people have been arrested over the deadly A-66 crash near Middlesbrough that killed 7, including 2 police officers, bringing the total to 17. The government is preparing to tell people to stock up on food and essentials amid climate and security threats, while energy bills are set to hit a 3-year high this winter. Housing plans for tens of thousands of new affordable homes have been outlined, though Burnham has softened some earlier pledges. Yellow weather warnings are also in force for heavy rain and thunderstorms across parts of England and Wales. Laters, tigers.
Well, welcome back. The comments have absolutely blown up. I've never seen anything like it. There must be 50 or 60 comments in a row, really supportive of AY Audits. That interview seems to have really got your juices flowing. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff. I mean, without civilian journalism like that, perhaps we would never know. I think it's a dangerous occupation for him to join. Trust me, he was a big man. But even so, I think that's particularly dangerous. I'm not going to encourage everybody to get out there and do it. But maybe we should be grateful that somebody is, because without that, how would we know? Well, the guy who's taught me everything I know is down the line now. His name's Mark Littlewood. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, good, Coxie. How are things back in Blighty, my friend?
Well, they're doing okay. I'm missing you terribly. You look very healthy. Looks like all surgery's gone well and convalescence is going. Tell us a bit about your holiday, mate. Holiday.
Yeah, all good. All good. In lovely, beautiful, sunny Calidore. I think you played a little clip of me earlier, Cox. The doctors couldn't have been clearer. Lots of nicotine, lots of beer, lots of curry. Somebody did point out to me on Twitter, what are you doing eating, Indian in Spain, Mark? I said, I agree. It's multiculturalism gone mad, isn't it? But there's a very, very good curry house there. And it was all going well, Coxie, until I had a little bit of a relapse last night when I had to bear witness to Southampton getting absolutely tonked 4-1 by West Ham United. So that set me back a few steps. But give me a few days, and I reckon I'll be fit enough to return.
I wasn't necessarily going to mention that. I mean, obviously, I enjoyed it thoroughly. Portsmouth in the previous game in the Cup got beat 3-1. And as I said to you on X last night, by the ancient rules of football, undisputable, that means with Pompey getting beat 3-1, Southampton getting beat 4-1, it means that Pompey would beat Southampton 1-0. And that's undisputable, Mark, wouldn't you say?
Well, it may be undisputable to you until October the 11th when we actually play each other, Cox, right? So you leave it to them rather than stitching up.
Well, maybe we should. Maybe I shouldn't get ahead of myself. We'll probably play this back on our show when we get there. By the way, on your wider shot, Mark, I can see you've got the most wonderful furniture in that room. I mean, I don't know where you are, but another exquisite location. But there is champagne. Champagne on the table. I mean, of course, yeah, it's part of the convalescence. It's
what, get that on the NHS.
Look at that next to the chair, the high back chair. This is what I imagine you doing. Yeah, we're zooming in on that now. You're sitting in that chair. You're smoking your nicotine, and you're just sipping away at the champagne. And this is all long before breakfast.
Oh, absolutely right. And, you don't get that sort of treatment on the NHS, do you, Coxie? No free champagne. As far as, you probably, if you ordered champagne, you'd probably be on a 3-year waiting list if you were being treated on the NHS, if they even had any. So yeah, it's all going well. The rehab's going well. Thank you for all of your best wishes. And yeah, the sun is out. What's the weather like in Blighty? Is it nice and warm over there?
It's not too bad because the revolution is being televised and I'm making sure that I'm on every single panel or presenting every single show associated to it. I don't actually see the outside very often, but the last time I saw it, it was doing pretty well. We got some thunderstorms rolling in. And talking of storms, look, you've got a story for us with regards to Mr. Kruger. Please take this away, Mark. This is fascinating.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. So, as part of my rehab, I've been scrolling through social media, trying to keep my finger, Coxie, on the pulse of the nation. And what should pop up yesterday, late afternoon or evening, and a short video by Danny Kruger MP, who is a Reform MP, and he is in charge of their preparations for government. So he's not so much about sort of winning the election, or I'm sure he'll try and help Reform to win the election. The question he's answering is, what will they do from day one onwards, were they to form a government? And I noticed what I thought was quite a little interesting story from Danny Kruger, who I'm very fond of, and I think is a good MP. We may even have a clip of it that he put up on X, I think, Paul. I think it's clip number 2. Am I right? Have we got that to hand?
That's correct. The Duke will be on that now. He's over there. He's just finishing his special brew, by the way. He won't put clips up before finishing his special brew. Duke, wake up. He's in the bin at the moment.
Since Labour came to power, they've quietly changed the rules on the way that trade unions operate here in Whitehall. There's now no limit on the amount of time that civil servants can spend on trade union activities, and no limit on the amount of spending that you, the taxpayer, make on civil servants working for trade unions. Civil servants can spend time going to conferences, organising committee meetings, all on taxpayers' expense in working hours. And there's now no limit on the amount of time that civil servants can spend on trade union activities. We've even got civil servants that spend 100% of their time as activists for their trade unions, not working for the government, not working for you. So how much does all this trade union time in government cost? We don't know, because the other thing the government has done is impose a total data blackout. Labour have ended the requirement for government departments to report on the number of people taking time off for trade union activity, the hours they spend, and the cost of the whole thing. Reform UK will change all this. No more guerrilla government with activists paid by the taxpayer working for their trade union masters. If you work for the government, you work for the public. No more paid time off for trade unionists in Whitehall.
So I thought pretty solid by Danny Kruger there.
He's an impressive man and politician, Danny Kruger. He's probably the best signing that Reform have made, arguably. And that was an impressive video, Mark.
Yeah. So it's a double scandal, really, isn't it, Coxie? That on the one hand, civil servants are allowed paid time off to engage in trade union activity, which is, let's face it, typically them lobbying for better pay and conditions at the expense of the taxpayer who's paying their salary and therefore paying for the time that they spend on trade union activity. But then the second whammy is Labour are now not willing to release any figures on how much time's actually spent on this. So I think it's a double scandal. As Danny Kruger says, they shouldn't be allowed to spend any time on trade union activity from their salaried hours. They want to do it in their spare time. Absolutely fair enough. But if you were going to allow that, which we shouldn't, but if you were going to allow that, at least tell us how many hours are being chewed up. So I saw that video. I thought, good on Danny Kruger. I made a rather innocent kind of quote tweet of it. Is that what they call it, Coxie? Where I said, we need more Kruger, much more Kruger. And that ignited the ire of the Conservatives, Cox. Within minutes of me doing so, Andrew Griffith, who is the Tory MP for Arundel and their business spokesman, and I have to say, a really sound chap, very good on his economic commentary and how Labour are really undermining the economic foundations of Britain. But he weighed in saying, Danny, I announced this back in April. I announced it back in April. So he was laying claim to being first and then tweeted at Kruger. I think we've got a couple of images of it, image one.
Yeah, let's show that.
I want to put up on the screen. So a little bit of a spat between Griffith and Kruger. Now, Coxie, why? So there you go. I was quite nice to the Tories as well. I announced this in April, says Andrew Griffith. I said, well, we need more Griffith too, much more. I said we need more Kruger too, much more. So he was saying he got there first. But doesn't this tell us about unite the right if it's ever going to happen, Cox? Because on the one hand, the Tories and Reform have alighted on the same policy. And this seems to be happening in a wide range of areas, right? They've pretty much agreed on carbon net zero. They've both agreed on withdrawal from the European Convention of Human Rights. They both had plans, slightly different ones, to cut the welfare bill. Now there's another point of agreement on this policy area. Civil servants shouldn't be paid in order to be trade union lobbyists. So they've converged, but they seem to be having a spat about who got there first. It's like two singer-songwriters arguing about whether a song has been ripped off by another pop band or something. And I would have thought there isn't really any intellectual property around policy ideas, right? They should be genuinely and sincerely welcoming that they've arrived at the same policy position. And on this, at least, and other areas of common agreement, work together hand in glove, right? So I thought it was an interesting tale about how the right is moving together intellectually, but still throwing brickbats at each other.
So many things to unpack there. First of all, the voters don't care. They don't care. Who came up with the policy? We don't care. Have your infighting behind the scenes? We don't care. Also, secondly, it proves that there is so much common ground between Reform and Conservative that two of their best politicians have come up with exactly the same policy. And also, thirdly, of course, there's no intellectual property around policy. If there was, there would just be one or two policymakers that were constantly coming up with it, and that's all we'd have. They say, no, sorry, we used that word in April. I see you've written immigration there. We wrote immigration with the word illegal next to it back in 2016. You would have no policy whatsoever. You just have three people writing it. And fourthly, I can tell you that what they're talking about is 100% true. For 12 years, I worked for Transport for London, and I was never a member of a union. The largest union at Transport for London was TESA, which is the transport union. People were given pretty much unlimited time to work with that. They were also given unlimited time to counter it. So when the unions went on strike, then every one of us were encouraged, even paid extra, to go and stand at the stations and help people out because the staff weren't there doing their jobs. And even more significantly than that, for about a year period, I worked for a guy who was the head of the Muslim Council of Britain. Now, the reason I mention that is he was given endless time, unlimited time to work on that. So he would have his day job working at Transport for London, but he would also, whenever he wanted, spend as much time during the working day working for the Muslim Council of Britain. Now, that was perfectly, absolutely fine for TfL. But let me tell you, when I was there, working for GB News in the latter part of my years at TfL, there were at least 2 claims from people I work for that I shouldn't be doing that, and the legal team had to get involved and say to them, Paul is able to do what he likes outside of work, but they just kept pushing it, where there was no question about people working for unions, no question about TfL not doing their job but then covering the unions, and absolutely no question whatsoever that the guy who was head of the Muslim Council was just doing as much work as he wanted. Great work, I understand, But
Right.
this has to stop, surely.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, well, your anecdote there, Coxie, is proof positive that the system is rigged, right? Muslim Council, fine. Appearing on GB News even in your own spare time, not fine. There's no way we can have that. We've got to get back, haven't we? We've got a bloated civil service. It's absolutely colossal. And we should be trimming it down. And they should be focused on their own jobs. So you were working for Transport for London, right? Well, what's that got to do with the Muslim Council? Aren't you just supposed to be making sure that the bus system works efficiently and the underground, is repaired and all that sort of stuff? What's that got to do with Islam?
It had nothing to do with it.
I don't see why our taxpayers' money should be going on that.
If I'd headed up the far-right Legion of Great Geezers in Portsmouth, which is not a group, but perhaps it should be.
Still a work in progress, right? Still a work in progress.
Look, arguably, that's no different than working for the Muslim Council of Britain. Both in today's modern society perhaps have a legitimate place, and people would say, are on par with one another, the direct opposites on the spectrum. But obviously there are protected characteristics, and one of them, particularly within the civil service, is working for unions. And it's such a weird juxtaposition as well, because the management class at somewhere like TfL despise the unions, although they can be members of the unions because it's stopping them getting anything done. And they're caught in this trap where they just believe it's the right thing to do, and they just do it anyway at taxpayers' expense.
Yeah, shocker, absolute shocker, Paul. Look, I'm not hostile to trade unions. If people want to join a club or a society, I don't want to stand in their way. I think what we've got to unpick there is that trade unions shouldn't have all of these legal and financial privileges. If you want to join a trade union, fine, but it should be just like joining, I don't know, your local chess club or your local bridge club or the Women's Institute or something. We shouldn't have endless rules, laws, statutes around preferential treatment for what should be a voluntary society, which people are free to join and club together. But here's another thing, Coxie. I don't know if you've picked this up. I've seen this rumoured. I think the Telegraph was speculating on it. I know a lot of folk in the chat, and I totally understand where they're coming from and saying you can never trust the Conservatives again. Look at their record in 14 years. Obviously, Kenny Badenoch is trying to overcome that. I mean, it's a big challenge to overcome. People will have long memories about the failure of the last Conservative government. But it's rumoured, Cox, that she's about to reshuffle her top team. When she got elected leader, she promised to offer jobs to all of her defeated rivals, which she did offer jobs to. And she said at the time, or rather her spokesman did, that's it, there won't be a reshuffle this side of the general election. We want stability. We want to know who's in what job. Well, that now seems to be changing. I think Kemi's going to shuffle the pack. It's in part because Claire Coutinho, the energy spokeswoman, well, she's pregnant, so she's going to take a bit of time off to have a baby. But I think it's going to be a wider shuffle than that. And here's my hot tip, Cox. Keep your eyes peeled for this. Will she replace Mel Stride, the rather middle-of-the-road establishment shadow chancellor for the Conservatives, with someone who's a bit more radical, a bit more pro-market, namely Andrew Griffith? So I would be quite pleased to see Andrew Griffith take on the shadow chancellor role. Keep your eyes peeled for that. It would be a sign that Kenny Badenoch is somehow serious about making the Conservatives conservative again. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but it could well happen. You heard it here first.
Yes, absolutely, and that's what you're all about. Breaking news, Mark. Look, it's a very interesting point because obviously the shadow, whoever it would be, minister, is often chosen to counter whoever the minister is. And previously it was Rachel Reeves with her exquisite record of economy knowledge, and I think she was head of the Bank of England for I think it was 40 years. So now John Healey's come in, who seems a pretty sensible guy. I haven't got to grips yet with what his economic policies are, but he's at heart a socialist, so I assume ridiculous. But we are going to need someone in, and having read up since your tweets yesterday, which just went off the scale, I thought, well, who are these characters? Obviously, I know Danny Krieger, but I didn't know Griffiths was, so I looked him up a bit. He seems a formidable character, and if he's got the Littlewood seal of approval, then that's good enough for me.
Yes, I had some dealings with him when he was in government. He was at the Treasury, And he was one of the people who was determined to try and push water uphill. Very difficult job, but he was desperately trying to get decent reforms done, always, thwarted by the blob, by the system. But his heart and his head are in the right place, Andrew Griffith. He's well worth following on Twitter. Even if you don't trust the Conservatives, won't vote for him again, just see what he says, and I think you'll like it. He is extremely good at taking down every single mental Labour economic policy. And that's why if I was in Kemi's shoes, I think I'd reshuffle my pack and put Griffith across the dispatch box to take on John Healey. But we'll see which way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, if you haven't come across Andrew Griffith before, definitely one to keep an eye on. Could even, in the fullness of time, be a future leader of the Conservative Party, I think.
Yeah, look, Mark, so good to have you on. I can't wait to get you back. We'll probably see you at least one more time before you're back next week. I hope so anyway, and let's get the combo reunited next week. Thanks very much, Mark. Make sure you enjoy your holiday, and thanks for contributing today and taking 20 minutes out. Take care, my good friend. I will see you very soon.
Paul.
Thank you. Just going to quickly go to some of the comments, but I do have Bruce Hamill with me. I'm just teasing you. He'll be with you very shortly. He's looking absolutely delicious. I've never seen a man look quite so good. For his age, I think he's 77. So that's not bad whatsoever. So Kez K, hey Kez K, seems to be awake more than I am. They say, and I think I established that yesterday, actually, I'm hostile to trade unions. I was accosted on my first day of work by the union bully who said I had to join the union. Workmates were told to not talk to me until I joined. I left on payday. Very interesting, Kate. That's not the only story in the comments like that. Meow Mog said she can reshuffle as much as she likes. This is Kemi Badnock. She is part of the Uni Party seesaw and they will never get my vote. A lot of empathy for that type of stuff there, because morning Hevchip, I said, agreed, Meow. Agreed. Agreed, meow. Now that just sounds like Head Chip has gone, agreed, meow. But I don't believe so. Just referring back to what Meow was saying. Look, that's enough of all that for now. I've got Bruce Hamill in the studio with me. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning,
How
sir.
you doing, mate? This is
Very
great,
good.
by the way. This is absolute fantastic. Two sex icons of the internet coming together at the same time. There is all sorts going on out there, and one of the things is the rise in sales of Tenor Lady. So, look, mate, thanks ever so much for coming in.
My
You
pleasure.
are a big deal as far as I'm concerned. And when I met you for the first time, you were surprised that I knew who you were.
Yeah.
I was equally surprised that you knew who I was. So, mate, it's great that we've come
We
together.
had a bit of fanboying,
We
didn't we?
did do a bit of a cuddle,
Yeah.
some touching, I believe. But
Light and moderate.
light touching, with consent, I hasten to
Yes,
add.
with consent.
With consent. But Bruce, thanks so much for coming in today.
My pleasure.
I really do appreciate that. Your audience are following you here, and I can see some of them in the chat now. So pleased to see you here. Some hi, Bruce, from Patricia Young.
Hello.
And Bruce, everyone knows who you are, but tell us just a little bit about your journey to where we find you today.
It's quite a length. Well, I'll try and keep it short and sweet. I think a lot of people know it. So I'm a qualified carpenter and moved into education in 2017. So saw the inside of that from training apprentices. So I've got a lot of experience in education and seeing how that gradually got shaped over a number of years, and then moved into digital development. And while I was doing that, started my TikTok account in 2022 and picked up quite a big following on there, and then gradually migrated over to Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. Yeah. And here we are today. Last July, I hung up the 9 to 5, said, sod it, I don't want to have this nonsense anymore. I'm just going to go out and make a go of it.
And make a go of it.
Here we are.
You do. I often watch your videos in the morning when I first get up, and I've said this to you before, but I love
just for that, Paul?
Yeah, well, you know, you got to get the day going, Bruce, and I find it's you that gets me going, my good friend. So what I said this to you before. I like your tempo, the way, and these things are very interesting to me. I like the way you talk. I like your tempo. I like the cadence. I like the way you communicate. You do it in a way that gets the news across in a relatively serious but entertaining way.
Yeah.
It's not all about clickbait. It's about getting the story across, and I like that, and I think that's why you've built such a big following, and long may that continue, which I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit Marmite, to be honest. I think some people like me and don't like me. Everyone's got to complain.
You said that to me when I said it to you, and I thought, really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I get a lot of stick from time to time, people. But I think yesterday's a prime example. You see the headlines coming out about Maloney.
Yeah, that was a great video.
It was a good, and the funny thing is June, who's going to be on later, she covered it as well. Both of us turned around and said, this is absolute nonsense. And what happened was, you saw the Times publish their article, then very quickly, and I was quite disappointed in GB News because they kind of spun this round as well. So did the Telegraph. Multiple news outlets spun this headline around to basically say Maloney has advised Kemi Badenoch to distance herself from Reform UK. Well, what the actual headline, what the article actually said was that Badenoch had already shunned Reform prior to and they just spun it around. We all called it out. And lo and behold, last night, what actually happens? The Tories then, or Maloney's then come out, or the Italian government have come out and totally gone off the rails about the fact that this was even pushed around British media. Yeah. She's furious about it, and they've had to retract all their stuff. And I think it's just testament to some of the conversations you've had today that the media just keep misleading people, and it's not the first time this has happened where they've retracted an article. And I think it's created a space for people like me, people like yourself, to talk about this stuff, and lots of other people to try and dig into the news, to try and find the facts, to try and find the things that they're leaving out of these articles. Because going back to what AY said with when he was on earlier about the fact that they're trying to control the narrative, that's across the board with everything, be it from immigration, be it through the education policy, the unions, everything, donations. It's always a case of, when I did videos recently exposing the donations and how much was being pumped into the Uniparty essentially and the Liberal Democrats, that there's always rules created around what they want to do and the narrative they want to push. And I think people like me, June, many others, are exposing that, and they don't like it. Although I generally tend to do all right. I don't get videos pulled because I'm trying to be clever about what I do.
Yeah, it's journalism.
Yeah.
It's genuine
and
journalism.
I have a lot of qualification in it because I don't think you need one. Journalism is about telling the truth. And if you're finding the data and finding the statistics that generally is public information, if you're telling the truth, you don't need I don't need to go to a college and get a certificate for that.
No, you probably don't, and it's a shame that people everyone feels like they have to, because, and that's why they're gripping onto this so much. I mean, June will be on later, less of a journalist, more of an opinion giver, and such well-articulated, strong opinions as well. She can connect with people who just aren't engaged with politics because she talks their language. And I think sometimes journalism and media lose that a little bit because they lose the connection with how people talk and think. And instead they prescribe it, which is what we see in these interviews. So first of all, you get a casual meeting between the leader, Kemi Badenoch, of the Tory party in the UK, and the Prime Minister, Maloney, in Italy, who's on the right, doing a fantastic job.
Well, I would say she is the Nigel Farage of the Italian. That's what her party was.
Then they write about it, so they give you the narrative, and then the headline writers write about it, which is where the story comes from, because no one's looked at the interview, no one's read the article, and they've just read the headline and gone, that's the story, and then they run with it, and that's how we get so much division.
And then obviously what happens, and I've brought this up many times before, the tactics that get used, particularly in what I do as well, it's the same thing. When you're putting something onto a video, it's the same thing as using a newspaper headline. You're going to use the headline is your hook. The byline is like the first 10 seconds that you're going to say what you're going to say. Then you go into the detail. And the reality is that most people will look at a headline or see something flash up, and it's like, I knew it. Even Maloney's saying Reform UK, you should keep away from Reform UK, and it never happened at all. So what frustrates me about it, Paul, is that then gets planted, that seed gets planted in people's minds from those headlines, and they don't actually look into the detail, which is what then me and other people try and expose is actually, when you break this down and look at the reality of what happened, this is totally manufactured. It's manufactured to just get that 5-second read, plant the seed in your brain, and then, which is why we see everyone calling Reform UK. I get branded a fascist every day. And a racist every day.
And that's just by me.
Because that's Paul.
That's just on WhatsApp.
I get messages off him.
Look, Let's just quickly go to a couple of super chats. Let's get those up on the screen, Duke. Duke's in the bin over there, getting out the last of the special brew. We've got Christian Maud, super chat, £5. Thank you, Christian. Brilliant show, Coxie. Bruce and June Slater are fantastic. Keep up the great work. Well, talking of great work, thank you very much, Chris. Really do appreciate that. Bruce, did you see my interview with AY?
Obviously, I listened in a little bit of it. Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd met AY Audit, so I was aware of his work. I try when I'm interviewing people like that to try and ask. I don't want him to feel like he's under the cosh when he comes on somewhere like UK Live. I want him to explain his side of the story. Also asked him, does he think this is the right thing to do? And he genuinely does.
Yeah.
That's what he does. What do you make of? Because what you do is look at the news and then report it so that the regular man and woman on the street can understand it.
Yeah.
And you do it because you're supportive of reform and you want the country to be better. What AY is doing is something different to that.
Yeah.
What he's doing is dangerous.
Yes.
To some degree.
Yeah.
And what do you make of all that world?
I think he does well. I've met AY before. Obviously, I'm not sure. We've got RF Barnum going on at the moment. So RF Barnum is about 10 miles down the road from where I actually live. So this is very close to me. AY came up a while ago when I was at a protest there. So generally, it's exactly the same thing. He'll go out and he documents this stuff. I've seen some of the things that he's done where he's actually gone inside these hotels, got access inside the hotels, and he's exposed live what's actually going on in there. And I think it's very right in what he says. I think there's a narrative out against these guys that basically says they're causing problems, they're stirring up trouble, when I don't think they are. And I do find him particularly good because he is calm, he is personable, he is the kind of person that will hold a conversation. He doesn't get aggressive, he just goes there and holds his camera. And there have been many situations where he's had the police on his case, where people have made claims and accusations against him, and he's proven it. He proves it outright. And I think the only reason people like him and me exist is because of this narrative that the mainstream media push. People are starting to realise we're not actually getting the whole truth. And I think it goes to show in the last few days, I don't know if we saw the other day that apparently the Home Office now are putting things on the southern coast, scanning, facial scanning facilities, and they're heightening the security on the southern coast because they've now proven that Iranian sympathisers are coming in on the small boats, which has been one of the arguments that we've been highlighting all the time. I think what AY does is goes into the hotels and exposes the fact that not all these, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here, Paul, and say that every single person coming in on a boat is a bad person. Of course they're not. The problem is that some of them are. And some of them are coming into this country with ill intentions. And it's been proven because the Iranian regime have admitted it. Now, whether you take that as gospel and whether that's just them saying things to kind of blow smoke up everyone's backside, but then they go and catch Iranian terror cells operating inside this country. We had a power station get knocked out not too long ago. For 4 days that was quite quiet because it was quite small. However, that gets underplayed. That gets underplayed in the news, it gets underplayed in the MSM because they don't want people to realise this stuff. And I think, unfortunately, what's going to happen is it doesn't matter if you've had 40,000 people come in the last year, you only need 1% of those people to have ill intentions towards our country. And I don't think it's going to be a case of, we obviously hear fantastic stories of machine guns and hand grenades are being dropped off in the country and they're all going to pick them up one day and roam around the streets. I do not think that's what's going to happen. I think what they will do is they will attack our infrastructure because they can cause more damage to the entire country en masse in one go with a big coordinated hit against our infrastructure. And you don't need many people to do that, Paul. You need 400 or 500 people tops nationwide.
So have you been following the documentary that Talk TV commissioned?
Yes,
and Christian Brogan, The Watchman. Now, I watched that yesterday, and within that, there was a scene which he managed to record where there was a big falling out between the guy driving the boat and one of the smuggler leaders, and they were having an irate conversation in Farsi, which is a language spoke in Iran. Specifically in areas which we should be worried about.
Yes.
So it's very obvious that those people are on the boat. That's just two of them there on one boat. And I think what Christian Brogan, the Watchman, has been able to do under Isabella Rochard, and by the way, the Daily Tea did a fantastic coverage of it yesterday. Big fan of the Daily Tea and Camilla and Tim. I think what that's exposed is going to blow it up. I think if people are willing, then we will see a big change on that. But we're going to go to the news very quickly. Let's go to the news.
Hello, I'm Edward Hughes. The Knob of the North has just returned from his first foreign trip to Kiev. We are an English-speaking channel. It's Kiev, not Kyiv. He handed Ukraine the blueprints to build its own long-range missiles and pledged to push US President Trump for Patriot air defense systems. At home, 5 more people have been arrested over the deadly A-66 crash near Middlesbrough that killed 7, including 2 police officers, bringing the total to 17. The government is preparing to tell people to stock up on food and essentials amid climate and security threats, while energy bills are set to hit a 3-year high this winter. Housing plans for tens of thousands of new affordable homes have been outlined, though Burnham has softened some earlier pledges. Yellow weather warnings are also enforced for heavy rain and thunderstorms across parts of England and Wales. Laters, tigers.
Well, thank you very much, Edward Hughes, for the news once again. Before I get back to Bruce, and I can't wait till there's so much I want to talk to Bruce about, and of course, don't go anywhere because we've got Slating It with June Slater coming up in 15 minutes' time. I want to tell you something very exciting that's coming up on UK Live Online, and it's to do with the Intel lady. But let's just play this video to give you a hint.
It's our Ange. Listen, if you're far right adjacent, or you're just a normal, regular, decent person like me, I think you'll agree that I have defo been around the block. It's something we can all defo agree on. I've done many, many things. I've been a carer, a single mother, left school dead early, but I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, joined unions, eventually became a politician, had more kids. I'm even a granny now. I've done all sorts of interesting things, DJing, buying houses and that. I've done loads, and I really feel as though I'm at a point in life where I could defo give back to the public. There's one thing that is really missing in broadcasting right now, and that is a decent agony aunt. So I am going to offer the British public the chance to ask whatever questions you've got, problems that you might have in life that you really need answers to, not taxes or property or anything, maybe avoid those. But if you've got any problems and you really want somebody to listen and give you a bit of decent advice, then write in to Agony Ange UK Live.
So, you heard it here first. Angela Rayner is going to be our agony aunt. If you've got problems that you want to raise with our Ange, put them on Twitter at UK Live Online, and she will answer them tomorrow from midday. Genuinely, Angela Rayner answering your problems is the future. I've got Bruce with me again here, and Bruce, we were deep in conversation there about what's going on with regards to the migrant crisis and the way it's been covered up. I think it's been a big own goal from the mainstream media since independent media has really got a grip, because they've just dug in. Yeah. I mean, BBC Verify was one of the most sinister things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They basically set up their own, I mean, I hate to invoke the Nazis, but Goebbels would have been well proud of BBC Verify. Yes. They essentially set up their own department to verify what they say. And they expected and they didn't think that played into the hands of independent media whatsoever. And thank God they did, because I probably wouldn't have a job and you probably wouldn't have such a successful channel. What do you make of it?
I just think it's ridiculous. It's a case of marking your own homework, and it's not just them. It's Hope Not Hate have inlets into all these kind of things. You've got various different organisations that, I mean, I don't want to sit here and make accusations that I can't verify, but I think it would be safe to say that we could allege that a lot of these are being funded by nefarious sources. Yes. So we'll do our wording carefully there on that one. But I think it's kind of a, why do you need to create these? Why do they exist in the first place? Yeah. Because the very existence of a fact checker means that something's not being put out correctly. And I don't think they were created in the... Why would the BBC need to verify their own stuff or fact check their own stuff?
Can you imagine if you had Bruce Hamill verified?
I think I might start it.
After every video you'd come back and said, do you know what, we've checked it and Bruce was absolutely bang on there. You can take it from
I
Bruce.
think I did this myself yesterday, Paul, when it was actually Guido Fawkes that published the fact that the Italian government were up in arms about what this headline had happened. And then I published it on my own page to say, oh, no, well, look, it's all come out now, exactly what I said 7 hours ago. And June obviously had as well. But I just find it ridiculous that we live in an age where we've got fact checkers. Because the facts should be coming out anyway. That is the job of the media. The fact that they exist, and they're saying that they do this to counter people like myself. But I don't ever get videos pulled. I never get flagged for misinformation. Nothing ever gets... The only time I ever get any video pulled is predominantly on TikTok, and we all know why. Because they simply like a little bit of censorship, so we'll just put that out there now. They're the worst platform out there for it.
Very Chinese.
Very Chinese, which we seem to have a lot of ties with the Chinese now.
We do, don't we? I mean,
with embassies and God knows what else is going up, and meetings going on over there all the time. But yeah, Paul, I think the fact that fact checkers even exist, that predominantly get used by the left a lot. They do like to reference these and call on these fact-checking organisations quite a bit, because I just think they don't understand their own argument half the time.
And they don't debate their argument either. Verify, or as Robert Hughes said in the comments, BBC very lie, which I really like. Yeah. Great work, Robert. Lovely. Yeah. Loving your work there, mate. Look, they don't debate. They don't say, well, we heard Bruce Hamill say this today, and actually Bruce is wrong, and we're going to get Bruce on to talk to you about it. They'd never do that in a million years.
Of course
they wouldn't want to promote Bruce Hamill if it was the last thing they had to do to keep the BBC alive. Instead, they create a fact checker that cancels Bruce out.
Yes.
They go, Bruce is wrong.
We've proven that this happened and that happened.
How could you possibly trust independent media? They're not even trained.
Yeah.
Bruce is a carpenter.
Yeah, I'm not trained in looking for information and reading. Yeah. And the vast majority, and this is, I think the one thing I do that I probably sit relatively alone in, so I can name maybe 3 or 4 people that ever do it, is I do spend a lot of time on the Parliamentary Bills webpage. And I think, just to your viewers, it is a gold mine of just what they're planning and what they're going to do. And I do understand that one of the things, going back to what we said earlier, is I try and take that and break that down into working man, working woman's English, so they understand all the legislation and the articles and the acts and everything that's going on. But the information's out there. This isn't hidden stuff.
Yeah, but not everyone's got the time, Bruce.
No, of course
and you
they
didn't
haven't.
have the time, but you made time, and then it became your career.
Yeah.
Just want to check back into the comments. Emma Carrick said, Coxie, you're a fan of Tom A. Stanley and the Daily Tea. You've been sucked into the vortex, mate. Well, look, I take news sources from absolutely everywhere. Yeah. I do happen to admire Camilla Tominay in particular. I think she is a great journalist. However, is she right about everything? No. Is Bruce right about everything? No. Is Paul Cox right about everything? No. But at least they seem to be on our side. And I know you will argue, perhaps they won't. But well done, and thank you for sharing your comments. Now, earlier on, I had Jex Perkin on. Now, Jex Perkin is a councillor for Birmingham City Council. He didn't have the majority, but he had quite a few votes, enough to maybe lead the council. He's not leading the council because everybody on the council formed this evil coalition behind his back, and now he's struggling to get anything done or even have a say. I think that's testament to what could happen in the future if we don't get our act together on the right. Yeah. We end up being the Jex Perkin, because Jex has got hundreds of thousands of people that have voted for reform in Birmingham. A very difficult thing to achieve, by the way, and congratulations to him for doing it. But he doesn't run that council now.
Particularly there.
He doesn't run that council at all. That council is run by Gaza Independents, the Lib Dems, Labour. Anyone you probably wouldn't have wanted in your, in leading your country or leading your council. If we don't get it right on the right, the rest of the UK is going to look like Bruce, isn't it?
Yeah. And part of the video I did the other day was a comparison to Europe, and I don't think people realise that we're one of very few countries in the world. I think there are only 5 other countries in the world that use a first past the post system similar to us. Most people use proportional representation, particularly in Europe, and I think a lot of people still don't understand the gravity of our voting system. They don't quite get it, and I think I don't like doing this, but because as soon as I mention Restore Britain, I just get abuse.
Feel free.
Yeah, but the reality is politics in this country for the Conservative Party have existed for 300 years. Make no bones about it. And a lot of people don't even understand why they're called the Tories. They don't realise that they're actually called the Tories. That was their original party name for 127 years before they then rebranded as the Conservative Party, same with Liberals and the Whig Party. Anyway, if we just take it back to when Labour came into power, became the Union Party in 1923, they've run this country for 100 years. And they've been the only kind of stable political party we've had on the right, and I would say probably the only challenge that's come to them in recent history would have been UKIP when they became quite prominent through 2010 and 2015 under Nigel Farage. So we've never had any other party on the right side of politics to vote for. And then all of a sudden, within the space of a year, we end up, if we include Advance UK, who have ceased to exist now, 4. If you could even classify the Conservatives as right-aligned, I would say them and the Labour Party are more centrist than anything, and certainly what they've done for the last 30 years is blended together. But yes, we're now in this situation on the right side of politics where we've got potentially 2 political parties, and because of a lack of understanding of how first past the post works, in recent polling analysis that was done, it was estimated that Reform could potentially secure a minority government with around 280 seats. But if Restore Britain were to stand in those elections as well, they could cost Reform 30 to 40 seats on a 6 to 7% vote share. Now, that doesn't mean Restore Britain will get 30, 40 seats. It means it will cost Reform those seats, which will then go to Lib Dem seats or Green Party seats. And God forbid, Paul, if we ever get into a situation where Labour pull in 180 seats, the Greens pull in 50 or 60 seats, and the Liberal Democrats pull in their usual 50 to 80 seats, and that lot form a coalition to stop us on the right, we are going to be in a lot of trouble.
I definitely think there are people within Restore in particular that almost would be happy with that, under the philosophy that it's got to be exactly how they want it or nothing else, and therefore would be willing to have another 4 years so it gets even worse, with the view that if it got even worse, then ultimately Restore would win out. I mean, I don't follow that philosophy, and I know you don't either. However, there is definitely a case to argue that we have to collaborate and then we have to coalesce.
Yes.
I don't know around who. Some people say Kemi Badenoch because they're quite impressed by her. Other people say Nigel Farage because the Reform is so popular, and that is much thanks to Nigel Farage. I think it's a much smaller percentage of people that say it should be Rupert Lowe. A very loud percentage of people, but a much smaller percentage of people. But at the same time, Rupert Lowe can't be dismissed. How does this get resolved?
I don't know, and it's hard because it's a battle that I fight every single day, because I've got a lot of respect for Restore Britain voters. I've nothing against the voters. I've been very critical of their policy, the party's policy, and maybe its leadership, and that's it. It's not an attack on normal people. I've done the same for Reform, and people generally forget this. I criticised the appointment of Nadine Zahawi because I didn't agree with him, but it doesn't mean I abandoned Reform. Yet I do find that a lot of people that have migrated towards Restore Britain have been sold this notion that apparently Reform have backtracked on things they've said, which they haven't. I've been supporting them and following them actively and doing social media on them since 2021. They've never backtracked on any of the policy they've said. If anything, I would say they've bolstered and strengthened it. But there seems to be this narrative generated that what Reform want to do isn't enough, and it's the remigration thing. And part of the video I did as a long-form video last night on my YouTube was, this is a pattern that's happening across Europe. And even going back to Italy, Meloni's had the same thing, where I think it's Vannucci, oddly enough, has created a political party in February, same time as Restore Britain, that is all about remigration, mass deportations, sitting way further to the right than what Meloni's current party does. It's happened again in Sweden. It's also happening in Poland. And this starts to become a bit of a trend. This is not then a coincidence. This is a pattern. That what you're getting is these established right-side parties, for our example being the Conservatives, they drift fully to the centre. Reform comes up harder to the right. Gradually, as they realise they're getting further and further towards forming an actual government, we've now got to start pulling in moderate voters. We've got to pull in conservative voters, people who are disillusioned with them. So they start pulling the conservative vote in. That means they then, yes, I will agree, they have to back down on certain things, but I don't think they've ever weakened, particularly their immigration policy. What happens then is you get a percentage of the voter base there and said, well, they're not doing enough, they're turning into the establishment, we need to go and follow this voice. Who, let's be honest, Rupert Lowe's been in politics for about 2.5 years, 3 years. That's his track record since becoming an MEP in 2020. And I think they stayed there for about 9 months. They were in there. Obviously, then Brexit happened, and then obviously he's done about 2 years as an actual MP in Parliament. So if you want to do a comparison of the two men between Farage and Lowe, I would say you've got a man with vastly larger experience, has been fighting this fight for the best part of 30 years. He was out in the Channel on a boat in 2020. The footage is there of that. He's been stood in Parliament calling out these terrorists coming into the country, being smuggled in on these boats, been proven today because the Home Office have actually admitted it. And you've got another political party on the right-hand side that are basically saying, in not so many words, we want to get rid of all the people we don't like. And I just don't see how they've got a route to winning power, because all they're doing is taking the vote away from the option we have got. And what I've seen recently is Kemi Badenoch has suddenly shifted her narrative to start sounding very much like Reform UK. They're talking about leaving the ECHR, which 2 years ago, they were condemning Reform UK. There's proof of this. They were
under the 2024 election, they just did not want that whatsoever.
Didn't have a clue. And as soon as Reform UK mentioned it, it's incoherent. The policy is a joke. There's no way you'll ever see it through. Now, all of a sudden, when they realise that that's actually the narrative of the nation, well, the Conservatives do what the Conservatives do best. They start spinning what they believe is the popular opinion back. They start re-galvanising their vote. And I think when you look at current polling, you see them still sitting there around that 20% pool. That's very worrying. It's very worrying.
Yeah, a lot has to happen for change to happen. I'm just going to go to the comments quickly. We had some flash up on the screen while we were talking, so thank you very much. Nan1964 said, the show just keeps getting better. There was some big love for you, Bruce. There was someone in there who said, I absolutely love Bruce and love your channel.
Thank you.
Which is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. There was... it's very difficult because I'm doing this just as we do now. I really had a comment I wanted to read out, which is gone. Okay, Richard8331 said, this is nonsense. Farage didn't want anything to do with anyone an inch to the right of him. When they moved to another party, he demanded they should be supporting him. So there are still people in these comments that... are big Restore fans, because they just don't trust Nigel Farage.
Yeah, and I get that, yeah.
And, it's worth pointing out. Anyway, it's the time we've all been waiting for, Bruce and I included. Down the line, we have June Slater, but let's play the slating it video first.
We don't have a video, but we've got a nice photo.
There it is. We don't actually have one. There it is. Sorry, just made it up. Bruce... Luke the Duke just woke up then. He was leant over the bin drinking super brew from the carpet that he'd spilled earlier, but he managed to get up that picture. June, how you doing?
I'm actually really surprised to see Bruce and thrilled because I admire him, and he's often thinking along the same lines as me, although I'm a bit more sucker punch and he's more a detail man. So hats off to Bruce because he certainly puts the effort in. Everybody should follow Bruce. He's better than anything that the media put out, because the thing about Bruce is if he's done stats, you can trust him. You can't trust the media. I mean, you need to look. Can I just get this off my chest because this has really bugged me?
This is your time, June. You do exactly what you want.
I mean. A couple of days ago, it was said that Georgia Maloney had said to Kemi Badenoch not to do a deal with Reform, to stand, I think something like stand on her own 2 feet and be herself. And I thought, whoa, something doesn't add up about this. So I've got a friend in Italy who's in politics, and I asked them, they said, there's absolutely no documents anywhere. And the Prime Minister is recorded. Whatever she says, wherever she is, it's all documented. There's nothing documented anywhere that says she's mentioned Reform. She's never mentioned Reform. She did talk woman to woman. That's how it was put to me. Woman to woman, be yourself, stand on your own 2 feet. So I put a video out yesterday. I thought, sod it. I'm going to challenge the social media community and say they never said it. She's never said that. Georgia Maloney was not going against any other party. She was just talking leader to leader, woman to woman, do your own thing, basically. And I said in the video, and if you can prove me wrong, I'll apologise and I'll put it up. Nobody came on. I noticed Bruce had also, statistically, challenged this and got it right. There is no evidence anywhere of Giorgia Meloni saying that about reform. And what annoys me with this was an article put out by the Telegraph, a Tory paper, and most people would just believe the headline. And then that's it. It's on a roll. It's in the national press. It's in the provincial press. People read the headline, nothing else. People assume that Giorgia Meloni is recommending Kemi over and above reform. Nothing of the sort. This is typical of media manipulation. We've had it for years since Brexit, and it's one of the reasons I started blogging. So they had to eventually, the Tories had to apologise. There was an apology up yesterday. It was on Guido. And I thought, yes, get in there. Because I couldn't see anybody else other than me and Bruce that had actually put it out there that this was, in fact, a made-up story.
Yeah. Bruce said the same thing. And as soon as you were weighing on about him so much, even though it's my show, June, and you didn't mention me at all, and you said how good-looking Bruce is, how brilliant his channel is, I'm just going to leave, and I'm just going to leave you two to chat. No, I'm not going to do that. But Bruce is here. Is there anything you'd like to say to June, Bruce?
Is my mic actually on at the minute? I don't know if my mic.
No, we can't do. I didn't realize. I really put them in an awkward position there. But we will get you two talking in a minute. There's so much love in the comments. We just had a super chat in from Nanny Lou. Nanny Lou, one of my absolute favourites. Bloody fantabulous show again. Thank you. You found your. Think you found your place, Mr. C. Loves Nanny Lulu. Great work to you and the team. Thank you very much. Nanny Lulu is a big fan of us all. Now, June, before the show, I sent you a message because we were going to talk about a countdown. You then sent me one of the famous June Slater voice messages. Now, everyone I speak to says that communicates with you, so you always communicate in voice messages. Unfortunately, because I'm live on air, June, I have no idea what that message was. I could have played it because this is not an Ofcom, but because it was you, June, it could have been anything. There could have been C-bombs. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, a wise decision not to play it. I'll fast forward it for see you later. So that's cleared it up for you.
So are we going to do a countdown, or what would you like to talk about? I always want to leave slating it to June because June, I can't control the narrative for June Slater. This is June Slater time.
I'd like to give the government a good kick up the arse, and the reason for that is I put a post on this morning and I came across by chance through the local church a girl from Eritrea, and she was walking to a cleaning job and she'd walked the wrong way. She's looking on her phone. She's walked out of the town and into a village, and she'd done 4 miles on foot to then go cleaning. She was struggling to speak English, so we gave her a lift back into town, poor sod. Anyway, during the conversation, how come you're here, blah, blah, blah. She's lived in a camp in Ethiopia for nearly 3 years. All her family's gone. She's on her own, mid-20s, very polite, a Christian called Mariam, and she's watched her family die off. I said, will you ever go back? Her head sunk and her eyes filled up. And she said, I can never go back. She's working. And the thing that struck me, because we see all the crappy videos online with the machete, attacks in Britain and all these horrible people coming into our country. And believe me, nobody feels more strongly about it than me. This is wrong. Just getting off a dinghy and coming in and having hotel food and everything provided for. Wrong on every level. But people like her actually exist and come through the proper channels via a disgusting, foul camp. And then they sit there like rescue dogs, waiting for a chance to be rehomed. And the trouble is, the government, the politicians, the civil service have completely goosed our immigration, completely wrecked it. Their way of defending their foul play and their utter neglect and contempt for the British people is to call out to people like me who complain about it and call us racist, to shut us up. Now, what gets me, I put a post out, I wrote it, and the thread, 22,000 people have interacted with that post, and it's been seen 45,000 times. And people have said, June, you sound just like me. I'm up for that. I want genuine people to be able to seek refuge. The thing is, we want them to feel safe. we don't want them to come here to get rich, and we don't want them to come here to be better off than us, and we don't want them to come here to be put in front of us in any form of queue system, be it health or housing. No, we want them to have sanctuary. But the political class, the educated class, the human rights lawyers, the politicians, the civil service, they're all so aloof and ignoring us that they shut it down, they shut the argument down. The defence is we are racist. Well, we're not. So if 20,000 people in a 4-hour period can interact with that post and say, they see it just like me, how the hell can people turn around and call reform racist? Because they believe in everything I've just said, and so do the people that follow me. So we're not racist, are we? We're obviously quite rational people, and we deserve to be put first in our own country, while still having the capabilities to look after those in need, without being swamped by people who are more arrogant in some cases than the politicians themselves, swanning around our country, being chauffeured about, making sure they have a lovely time, while people are here selling the homes, selling the cars, can't afford to keep the maintenance up on the homes because we can't afford to live in these excruciatingly expensive times. Have it, government.
That is, I mean, the comments are flowing. That was pure Slater slating it there, June. Absolutely fantastic. Before I go to Bruce, and I'm going to match you two up like this is blind date, we've got a super chat in from Zara who said, love June and Bruce. Great show, Paul and team. Everybody's loving, absolutely everybody is loving June and Bruce together. So let's have them talk. Bruce, would you like to talk to June? I mean, I can disappear for a day if you like.
How can I follow what she's just said there? But June's exactly right. Everything she said resonates with everything I believe in as well. You've got so many people that are supporting Reform UK that have compassion. We have compassion for people. And we obviously see the distinction. And when you're finding examples like that, of people that have come into this country and they are genuinely here for the right reasons, they're not trying to milk the system, they haven't got a home to go to, they are genuinely war-torn, we have to look after those people. And I do think we have a responsibility for that. However, our immigration system is so broken that there doesn't seem to be a coherent answer to how we deal with this, because it's got to a point where, how do we fix it, June? How do you think we fix this? What needs to happen? Because it's very easy for political parties to turn around and say, we're going to stop all the illegals, etc., etc., etc. But I also remember when I was working at the college, we had Ukrainian refugees working at the college. They'd come into the country, they brought their identity with them, coming from a genuine war-torn country that we know was war-torn, and within weeks they were working in our system, paying their taxes, contributing, and every single one of them that I spoke to wanted to go back to their country. But I think what we're seeing coming from the likes of South Africa, Somali, Eritrea, the Middle East, they don't. They're coming here for a free ride. How do we separate all this? People always say legal routes, but that's not the only answer, is it?
No, I think one of the main answers is buckle up, France. With one thing, there's only one thing missing. There's one thing missing that sorts the lot out, and that's political will. There's no political will from the Tories, from the Lib Dems, from the SNP, from the Labour Party, from the government, from the civil service, from all the charities, from the human rights lawyers. There's no political will to stop it. They can come out with all the guff they want, and Kemi Badenoch can sound in her resounding voice in Prime Minister's Question Time, which means absolutely sod all, and nothing will change. You need political will. And the first thing you do, bonjour, France. This is Grand Bretagne. As from today, we will stop buying your champagne and your fine wine. You'll have to keep your Chateau Porteus, because we're not buying it anymore until you sort out the immigration and the north coast of France, s'il vous plaît. And we will not be sitting on your beaches, and we will not be skiing down your slopes. We'll go to somewhere else. And we're not having it anymore. Well, that's what we should be saying. We should be putting sanctions on France. They'll soon sort the northern seaboard out, because they'll want to flog us their gear. Helicopter parts, cars, fashion, wine, cheeses. Oh, they'll be absolutely stumped. We're the biggest customer after the US. So you put the squeeze on France and forget it. The reason they built the is it the M21 that stood over? I've used it hundreds of times. The reason they built it 3-lane is for the backup of traffic because of French civil unrest at the port. So we have to do it the backwards way around. Don't sanction us. Don't make travel hard for us. We're going to make it hard for you. Keep your stuff. We don't want it. We'll buy Australian wine. We'll buy Italian wine. We don't want yours until you sort that northern sea. There's plenty of police in France. There's plenty of police. I've been stuck on a motor. Go on.
No. I don't want to stop us letting it flow. It's not as if, by the way, this hasn't been done before. My father-in-law, God bless you, Ron, he's having a bad time at the moment. He was an immigration officer for 40 years, and he would have autonomy to make decisions about asylum cases. And the people that you're talking about, the genuine asylum seekers, the refugees, would get through. But the people that wouldn't. They had a spidey sense for people. They knew exactly what they were doing, but they would have autonomy to make those decisions. And someone would say, I plead asylum, and go, oh, do you, mate? I'll be the judge of that. And then the decision could be made there and then. Whereas now, if someone says, I plead asylum, much because of the interpretation of the ECHR, they're able to say they just go straight into another system. Because UK Border Force aren't asylum or immigration officers anymore. These aren't people with qualifications or speak several languages. These are people that are largely on not much more than the minimum wage, and they just get passed throughout the process. So all of this is totally gone now. But you can revert back to a time where you can manage the immigration service much like they did throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, where people were actually qualified to make decisions, and it was taken back into their hands instead of human rights lawyers. And we wouldn't see the scenarios that you're talking about and Bruce was talking about. June, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm all right. You fire some stuff at me and we'll box it out.
I'm absolutely happy to. So look, we had Councillor Jex Parkin on earlier. Now he is the Reform Councillor in Birmingham, and I was talking to Bruce about this, and he was unable to form a council in essentially as leader in Birmingham. They did it behind his back. The Greens, the Gaza Independents, the Lib Dems, they all formed a council behind his back, and now he sits on the side struggling, to get a word in edgeways while they carry on running Birmingham as they wish. The question I asked of Bruce earlier on was, that could be Great Britain in 3 or 4 years' time if on the right we don't coalesce. And by which I mean we don't choose a leader, we don't choose a party, and we just keep splitting ourselves into these factions and saying we want it 100% our way, or we're not going to do it at all. And you end up with that. Now, that would be an absolute disaster for Great Britain, like unmitigated disaster. June, what do you think we need to do in order to get the right to come together? You and I are passionate about this. Bruce is passionate about this. Most of our listeners and viewers are incredibly passionate about this, but there never seems to quite be the solution. And I fear the rest of the UK ends up looking like Birmingham City. What say you, June?
I fear it too. But I think the one thing the right, and I'm on the right, the one thing the right has to get used to is that we are not the answer. You can unite us. You can get every single one of them. Everybody's been to a Tommy Robinson march, and I know there's hundreds of people that go to Tommy Robinson marches that are not registered to vote because they've told me. You can have as many people as you want on the right. We never get to more than 5 million. We are not any more than 5 million as an entity. Even if we all agreed and we all kiss Rupert's bare backside on a frosty morning, we are still not enough to win an election. So what the people on the right have to do is to recognise why Nigel Farage doesn't go too far right, because he recognises that there are millions of people across the country that don't follow politics. So we get in this enclave on social media because we're following. If you're watching me or Bruce or you, people are interested in politics. They're following it. So we see it from this blinkered position. We think we are the answer. We must unite the right. No. There's no need to unite the right. What we need to do is attract the centre ground. It's not really the centre ground. It's the detached, ordinary man who's running 2 jobs, who's not watching this. They're not taking any notice of politics. We're all getting poorer every day because of the government. And they all want immigration sorting out. So what we have to do is let them see there is an option, because the only option is to win an election. It doesn't matter how many seats we still get. If they get 20 or 30, We know it's not going to happen because they've set off too late. This isn't favouritism. It's logistics. They've set off too late. You want to get a package to John O'Groats and you want to get it there by 2:00 this afternoon and you're in Cornwall and you haven't set off till lunchtime. It's not going to happen. That's where you sit in Restore. And as soon as you face that fact, you can support them, you can help them grow, but you have to recognise that that party won't be anything of any consequence until we get another government in to break up the two-party system. And you won't get that until you get somebody that's got some momentum behind them and Reform have it. This isn't favouritism, this is a plan, this is strategy. You work that strategy out so that you win the game. Once Reform do win a general election, you've done it. You're through, you've broken through the gates. Then change can begin. And then it's up to these other parties to take it forward onto the next 10 years. What we need to do, we need to talk to our friends and neighbours who aren't interested in politics, explain where the country's heading and how we are under the grip of communism right now. Dress it up any way you want, stakeholder capitalism, luxury communism, call it what you want. They won with Starmer. They've just put the second leader in. They're in number 10. Hello, they won. We're trying to get the country back, make no mistake about it. And to do that, you need all these people in the centre, 26 million of them. So I'm not too worried about whether the right unites. There's a lot of people on the right who are further right than me who would put people off from not those that don't follow politics. They'd put them off. They'd scare them to death. So we have to do our own thing and just face the fact that your first job is to break up this two-party system and then let Farage do as much as he can, as best he can, and still keep working to move whichever party you support forward for the next election. This isn't a fight you're going to win in an election. You're not going to win when you've won an election. Whoever gets the keys to number 10 is entering hostile territory. And is going to be up against it with the civil service. They're going to want them to fail, and they're going to want them to fail quickly. So we need to be behind that person. And that person, one with the nearest chance, is Nigel Farage.
That is incredibly astute, very intelligent observation. That is going to become a clip, June. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to bring Bruce back in now, who would like to ask you a question.
Yeah, I just agree with everything that June's just said there. And I think both of us covered this over the last couple of weeks where voter apathy is one of the biggest problems we have, isn't it, June? We're not aiming for the 2 or 3 million people that sit furthest over the right. It's the 20. Well, for a start, it's the 15 to 20 million people that in general elections just don't bother voting at all. It's the stuck to the ribbon conservative voters that simply will not move away from that political party despite 14 years of failure, despite the last 30 years of Labour and Tory governments plunging this country into the state it is. There is no other argument for this. People can blame Farage or Brexit or whatever they want. This is a 30-year downward spiral. Every single statistic proves it on immigration, on the economy, on our national debt rising, on the way the education system's gone, on how universities, kids coming out of school can't get jobs, the cost of living, prices for building companies, the amount of institutions that have shut down over the last few years. And one of the biggest problems we have, and I don't think people realise this, is we are talking about how do you win these seats. Diane Abbott has held her seat in, don't quote me on exact, June might know exactly where she is, but it's North London somewhere, since 1987. How is someone on the right taking that seat? How is someone taking that seat? Because we've seen Diane go on the campaign trail with 2 left shoes on, and she still managed to get that seat. So how on earth is someone taking that seat away from Labour? She won last time round with 15,000 vote majority. And this is what I think a lot of, and I don't mean to say it disrespectfully because I think there are a lot of Reform voters who think the same, is that we're just going to vote for the party, Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister. We just vote for Rupert Lowe, he's going to become Prime Minister. That is not how our voting system works. What do you say to that, June? How do we take Diane Abbott's seat off of her? The woman's 72 years old. She's been there for 40 years.
Well, you're not going to. You've got to accept your losses. We've lost that. That's dead in the water. So there's no point trying to get it. You have to concentrate on the other seats. And what we've got to do, we've got to explain to all these smaller parties with leaders like Heritage Party with David Curtin, nothing wrong with the people. They're all good people. But they are not going to become a government. And if we can't become a government, then you're not any use. You're just blowing your own trumpet. And I'm sorry to say, no matter how nice you are and how articulate you are and what great plans you are, most of the plans on the right mirror each other. We're all talking about the same stuff, but tweaked a little. Everybody wants the same thing. We want more jobs. We want our own kids to have a fairer chance in the education system. We want apprenticeships back. We want to see infrastructure repaired. We want to see less on foreign aid. It's like a tick box, and we're all together. And yet these people insist 10 years down the line that, well, no, people want to see me. People want me to. Well, if they want you to win, the most sensible thing you can do, if you believe in your politics, dump your badge. Forget it. It's over. You've took too long. You haven't won anything. And I'm saying this, people will hate me. I don't care. I've had enough. I've done this every day for 12 years for naff all in payment. So I'm having me bloody say. You were sat there basically causing division because of your ego. You actually believe you're that important that you should stand by this party that's got nowhere and stand in a seat. The best thing you can do, dump your party, put a big turquoise rosette on, stick your hand up, say, I'll stand for you in this constituency. Wherever the leader of our party lives, I'll stand in this constituency. Don't stand anyone against me. I'll put the Reform badge on. And get a seat. Get in. Get some power base. And then you can unleash your form of politics, which is exactly what you've been preaching for 10 years. You don't have to change anything. You can just use, they're a vehicle, they're an omnibus. Use reform as the omnibus to get you to your destination. And then move forward from there. That's what I would say.
June, this is why we love having you on the show. It's why the audience love you. It's why we all love you here. Slating It is going to come back week in, week out, and it's only going to get better, much like the channel, much like the show. Thanks so much, June. Please tell everybody where they can find you.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, on the screen there is June Slater. June, until next week, thank you very much. Bruce, wow.
She's brilliant, isn't she? She's absolutely brilliant.
Just the comments are going off the scale. They love you two together. Not enough for me. Can I just say?
Paul's
it's Littlewood and Cox. Littlewood's not even here. he has had a masturbating injury and had to go to Spain to have surgery. I'm still here. That's not true, by the way.
I know.
And then June and Bruce come on. It's all June and Bruce. Look, I'm here. Thank you. That was absolutely wonderful, though. I mean, June is an inspiration, isn't she?
Yes. And I think the funny thing is me and her talk in the background as well. I receive a lot of voice notes off June as well, and it's usually, you know as well as I do, when you receive one of these voice notes, I generally tend to sit on my couch,
you're going to take
sit
your time.
down, get ready to see what's coming, because it's going to be a vat of information. I do love June, but she's exactly right in what she's saying. I think there's things I want to say, but I won't say them because I think people understand what I mean. We have to get one vehicle in first. Now, I don't want to put out why, because I think you have to play the game as a political party.
Of course.
The game has to be played.
It's not, and by the way, the game isn't our rules. The rules have been set.
By the establishment.
So the reason, as June said, they're in. They have won. They are in.
Yes.
They are in, and they are setting the rules of the game. It doesn't matter how much hubris you've got, or how invested you are in your version of identitarianism, which is what it's becoming on the right now. This is what we like, is this, and it's that, and the other, and it can't be anything else. No, they're in, they are setting the rules, and as such, we have to learn to play by those rules.
Yeah, and I think it's the pettiness of it as well, Paul, because I think going back to what I said earlier, because we've not had the options on the right, and we've got so many options now, it's given people, it's like, the funny thing is I've always said you shouldn't treat a political party like a football team. But I do actually want to go back on that a little bit, because I think you kind of should treat them like a football team, in the sense that you shouldn't abandon them just because they sign one player you don't like. You wouldn't do that. I wouldn't abandon my football team because they hired a manager I didn't like. You can stand in the stands and criticise it. And I think for me, that's what becoming a member of a political party is. That's what standing up for a political party is that you try and shape the narrative, that you have a unified membership that all has the same agreement. And if the party does something you don't agree with, you come together and say, look, we don't really agree with this. You've gone too far that way or too far that way. But what I've seen is a lot of people have just jumped ship instantly to the newest thing that's cropped up because they didn't like one appointment or they're taking on too many Tories while flagrantly ignoring the same thing that's going on in the thing they've jumped to. And we haven't got time for this because going back to what you said, they make the rules. Let's take the donations, for example. Reform UK received donations from Christopher Harborne. What do Labour then do? They put in a new... They basically instruct the Electoral Commission that no one can donate to a political party now over £100,000 that's from abroad.
Mad.
And that's been drawn up to prevent Christopher Harborne donating to Reform UK. It's a direct attack on that party and yet I don't see anyone putting any policy in place to stop Lord David Sainsbury donating 53 million quid to all three political parties in the last 15 years.
Very interesting, Bruce. And people aren't really noticing this. And by the way, behind the scenes in the Lords, which is full of people who dislike reform, they are preparing for a reform government in a way that most people don't understand. So should reform get in and they try and enact anything, there's already laws being written now.
Yeah.
To stop reform enacting any of the policies they're trying to win an election on. It's a disgrace.
It is.
It is a disgrace, and no one party has a right to lead. You have to go out to the people. It's the people that pay their taxes. It's the people that fund your government. It's the people that make the decision.
Yeah.
And if there are a growing bunch of people out there that want step change and they want reform, then they should get it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that people don't realise as well is you've got. Look at the noise the left created over the Supreme Court making the ruling of biological sex. Man is a man, woman is a woman. They've absolutely lost their minds. What do people in this country think is going to happen when Reform UK, if they become a government, we're going to see an uprising from the left I don't think anyone can comprehend. Yeah. It is going to be 5 years of turmoil. And I think what we're going to do is the oddly thing is, as I say this, if we go back to 1923, the Liberal Party, the Liberals, who eventually became the Liberal Democrats after a period out, but Labour basically got the Liberal Democrats out from the Liberals out from their 200-year rule, became the opposition party to the Conservatives. They lasted 9 months. We're now seeing that 100 years later. The two-party system of Labour and Tory is coming to an end. Which one of them is going to break? Which one can sustain themselves? And who on the right out of Reform? Well, it's going to be Reform or the Greens. Are Reform and the Greens now going to be the next political opposing sides for the next 100 years? And at what point do they both come together? Because we need a change, but I just don't think the general public look at politics in a way where they understand how we can get it.
Exactly. And we need a change is an excellent way to end this very, very brilliant edition of the Mark Littlewood and Cox Show. Huge thank you to my presenter buddy Bruce, who did an absolutely fantastic job.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, mate.
You know where to find him. Make sure you're supporting him. Big thanks to June. The Slating It segment this week was off the scale good. Big thanks to Jex Perkin and to AY Audits as well. That was one hell of a show. And we saw Mark Littlewood from his lair in Calador in Mallorca. But that's it for today's show. Please tune in again tomorrow at 7 a.m. for the Mike Graham Show. But until then, we'll be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Keep it real.